It says, Kamera, my first few minutes with God, day number 243, Ezekiel chapter 16 through 17. God tells Ezekiel to confront Jerusalem with her detestable sins. Israel was nothing. God says they were helpless, kicking about in their own blood. But then he saw them and he picked them up and he washed them and he dressed them. Talks about how he dressed them in splendor and how he adorned them with jewels. He treated them like a queen. He said, you became very beautiful, rich, and famous. And he says, but you thought that your fame and your beauty were your own. So you gave yourself as a prostitute to every man who came along. He says, everything I gave you, you gave away. The gold and the silver I gave you, you made statues of men and you began to worship them. The clothes I gave you, you clothed and dressed your idols. The special oils and the choice flour and the honeys that I gave you, you set before them. The sons and the daughters that you bestowed to me, you gave and sacrificed to your gods. And what sorrow, he says, what sorrow awaits you? He says, you put pagan shrines and altars in every town. You prostituted yourselves to Assyria, Babylonia, and Egypt. In fact, you were worse than a prostitute. You didn't even demand payment. Instead, you paid your lovers instead of them paying you. This is adultery to me. This is what God says. This is adultery against me. He says, because of all of this, I will gather all your allies, the lovers with whom you have sinned, and I will strip you in front of them. I will give you to them. They will destroy you. They will band together and cut you down. They will burn down your homes and punish you. God tells them their sins were worse than Samaria and Sodom. He says, you make them seem righteous, even virtuous. God says he will one day restore Sodom and Samaria and Jerusalem. But for now, you will get what you deserve. God then gives Ezekiel a message, but he gave it to him in a riddle. But then after he gave him the riddle, he explains the riddle. He says the king of Babylon takes away the royal family, and he makes a treaty and enforced an oath of loyalty with them. He says only with keeping this treaty with Babylon could Israel survive. Israel's man, the king, rebelled against Babylon. God wasn't pleased with that. God says that king of Israel will die in Babylon. God says he will punish him for breaking their treaty. God says, it is I who make the green tree wither, and it is I who gives the dead tree new life. So there you have it, guys. It's day number 243, Ezekiel chapter 16 through 17. You have a God-filled blessed day.